Good morning, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Gruel, and we're ready to get started with our next math lesson today. Before we jump into math lesson number 7, we're on. So if you want to grab your lesson 7 problem set and have that ready, you can. We're actually going to go over, I want to do a little bit of review of everything that we've covered so far with our equal groups and our arrays. So you will want a piece of paper, or if you have a whiteboard and a dry erase marker, that works. But at the very least, have a piece of paper and a pencil, because we're going to work on writing some repeated addition sentences, some multiplication sentences, and then we're going to get to some division sentences too after our lesson yesterday. And I said to the kids in class yesterday, we have only had, it's only like our second week of math, and look at everything that we're already doing. So we already know how to do all kinds of stuff in math, and we just barely started. So I'm so proud of you, boys and girls. Okay, so I'm hoping that you have pencil and paper or a whiteboard and a marker, and let's get going here. All right, so we have a picture here, and we have 1, 2, 3 groups, and there is 2 stars in each group. So if I label that, I have 2, 2, and 2. So I would like you to write a repeated addition sentence. I'm just writing it because I'm going to have you pause the video and write these for me. A repeated addition sentence and a multiplication sentence. Okay, so going by this picture right here, I want you to pause the video and write a repeated addition sentence and a multiplication sentence. So go ahead and pause it and write those number sentences for me, please. Okay, so I'm hoping that you actually did it and we're not cheater pumpkin eaters, and you wrote those number sentences for me. So the best way to learn, boys and girls, if we pause and we're interacting with the video and we're writing those number sentences and working when I want you to pause it and do some independent work, okay? So for our repeated addition sentence, did you write 2 plus 2 plus 2? And we're not done, we need to finish it off, equals 6. Give me a thumbs up if you said 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. Nice work. Okay, and then the second part of that was the multiplication sentence that went with it. So we have 3 groups, and remember, it's always the groups first. So it's groups times the number in the group, right? So 3, they already started it for us. There's 3 groups times the number in the group. Well, there's 2 in each group. So did you put 3 times 2 equals 6? Give me a thumbs up if you had that, and give me 2 thumbs up if you had both of those number sentences correct. And if not, that's okay, because mistakes help our brains grow stronger. So if we did make a mistake, just making that correction and trying to understand where we went wrong with our mistake. I want to take this and I want to turn it into a quick array. So I have 3 groups. So if you want to pause it and try to make the array, you can, or you can watch this one and do another one with me after. Since there is 3 groups, we're going to have 1, 2, 3 rows, and then I put them on a shelf. That's why I draw those little lines when we first start, because some kids mix up rows and columns. So we have 3 rows, and then since there's 2 stars in each one, I'm just going to add 1 more to each group. So that gives me 3 rows. So I'm going to put that 3 right there, and there's 2 stars in each row. And then I can put that little time sign there, and that brings me right down there. That makes it so nice and easy to see that 3 times 2 equals 6. So with this picture, we just wrote a repeated addition sentence, we wrote a multiplication sentence, and we were able to take that picture and turn it into an array. So nice work. Okay, let's move on to our next one. All right. And our next picture, we have groups of hearts. Okay, so how many groups do we have? 2, 3, 4. 4 groups, right? And then how many hearts are in each one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they each have 10 hearts. So I'm going to go ahead and put 10 right below each picture like that. Okay. And then I want you to do the same thing here. I'd like you to pause the video and write a repeated addition sentence and a multiplication sentence to match this. So again, a repeated addition sentence and a multiplication sentence to match our picture. Pause it and go. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to come back. So I really hope that you're pausing it and you're filling in your answers and then check it with mine. So for my repeated addition sentence, since we have 10, 10, 10, and 10, did you write 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals, and fives and tens are super fun to count by, so let's count by tens together. Will you count with me? Here we go. 10, 20, 30, 40. So it equals 40. Give me a thumbs up if you had 40 for your answer. Good job. Now, who has that multiplication sentence for me? They started it off for us, and they started it with a 4. And why does 4 come first? Because it's the number of groups. Good. So it's 4 times the number in each group, and we already know that there's 10 in each group. So it's 4 times 10, and we already know the answer. We did that work over here, and it equals 40. Touch your nose if you have 4 times 10 equals 40. And touch your head too if you had the 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 40. We look pretty silly right now, don't we? Good. So instead of turning this one into an array this time, I want to show this same picture as a number bond. So to make this into a number bond, we'll put that part, that's going to be the whole at the top. So at the top for the whole, we're going to put the total. So what is the total number of all the hearts right here? It equals 40, right? So we're going to put 40 up top. Okay. And then how many parts will it have? 4 parts, right? Because we have 4 groups. So I'm going to make 4 parts to my number bond. And then what number do you think is going to go inside of those parts? It would be the number inside of each group, right? So we have 4 groups. So we put 4 groups there, 4 parts, and there's 10 hearts in each one. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 10 inside each of those groups. And then it's easy way to check to see if we're correct, because I can just add the parts of my number bond. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40. So we're good. Okay. If you wanted to pause the video and make a array to practice, you certainly could do that. Just make sure that you have the 4 groups, because like some of us are still mixing up the rows and the number in each row, but there's 4 rows. So they would go this way, and then you would keep adding to each one until you had 10. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we keep adding. So if you wanted to practice that one on your paper or your whiteboard, you certainly can do that. Okay. All right. Let's do one more picture together, one more practice. Okay. So same thing for this one. We have some groups of footballs here, and I would like you to write a repeated addition sentence and a multiplication sentence. And I'm going to really stretch your brain here. I would also like you to do an array and a number bond. Can you do all that? So I'm going to just write a list right here. So I'm going to abbreviate it though. So repeated addition, I'm going to put that plus sign for addition, a multiplication sentence for that one too. And then I want you to make an array and a number bond. Remember that hashtag symbol stands for number. So write me a repeated addition sentence, a multiplication sentence, an array, and a number bond. Okay, so you can pause it right on that screen so that you have that list there of the 4 things that I would love for you to put on your paper or your whiteboard and get to work. Okay, and when you unpause it, I'm going to be going over the answers. All right, again, my little friends, I'm hoping that you're pausing and doing the work so that you can come back and check. So for the repeated addition sentence, there's 4 groups of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and stick a 4 on each one. Okay. And then so the repeated addition sentence would be 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals, and to get that total, you can count by 4s. You can touch each football and count them as you go. You can count by 2, 4, 6, however you want to do it. But I hope you got 16 for your total. Give me a thumbs up if you got that. Good. So check, we did the repeated addition. Now we have the multiplication sentence. So they already started that multiplication sentence and they put a 4 there to start. 4 times, so 4 is the groups, times the number in each group, and there's 4 in each group, and our total there was 16. So grab your ear if you got that one right. Good. And now we had the array. So for the array, there's 4 groups. So I'm going to put the first one in each group, and I'm going to put it on a shelf to remind me that those are my rows. And I always tell the kids too, when they're mixing these up, I say, which way does like a bookshelf go? So the books go this way, right? On a shelf, they sit this way. So we can just keep going back and forth like that to remind ourselves that rows go this way. The columns go up and down, but rows go from side to side. And also remember we did this too. So if you're still really struggling mixing those two up, we can do that too. But remember that rows go across like that. So even if you just have to put them on a bookshelf like that until we kind of get the hang of it. So there's 4 rows because there's 4 groups, and there's 4 footballs in each. So I already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my 4 rows of 4. Okay, so I hope your array looks like that. And if not, just pause it and fix it and just learn from the mistake, right? And the next one is your number bond. So for the number bond, remember at the top part, we put the total, and our total was 16. And then for the parts, we look to see how many groups we have, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and there's 4 in each one. So I just stick a 4 in there. Easy as that. So if we're still not there, I hope that just we'll keep practicing it, and it'll come and it'll get better and better. Okay. So I told you that I wanted to also stick a division sentence on there, and we didn't do that yet, but I wanted to make sure we had solidified the multiplication first. So now I want to go back to that first card that we had, and I want to write a division sentence. Okay. And also show you how closely related that multiplication and division are. So if we look, we have 3 times 2 equals 6. When we divide, we always have the total first. So it's going to be 6 divided by, and we'll divide by the number of groups. So there's 3 groups. So 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Okay, so if we look, we have the same numbers, 6, 6, 3, 3, 2, 2. So this just shows you how closely related multiplication and division are. When we multiply, we're looking for the total. When we divide, we start with that total. So we're looking for the total, which is 6. When we divide, we start with that total. And then our other 2 numbers that we end up are the factors. So we had 3 and 2 for our factors, and our product is 6. So remember, factors are the numbers that we multiply. Okay, and so these are our factors, and this is our product. So we take that product, and that's our 6 here. That's the number that we're going to be dividing by. So 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Okay, good. So now let's go back to our heart picture, and let's write a division sentence here. So we had 4 times 10 equals 40. So when we divide, what number comes first? The total. So if you want to pause right here and go ahead and write your division sentence, you can, and then check it back with me in just a minute. Okay, so again, when we divide, the total comes first, which is 40. We're going to divide by our number of groups, which is 4, with an answer of 10. So again, the same numbers. We just make sure that our answer in our multiplication sentence, if we're going to use those same facts, same fact family, we're going to start with right there. Kind of simple when we look at it like that, isn't it? Okay, and the last one that we did is some footballs. Okay, so if we're going to write our division sentence, we're going to start with a total from our multiplication sentence. So it's going to be 16 because that's our total in multiplication. So we always start with that total when we're dividing. We're going to divide by 4 because there's 4 groups, and it equals 4. Good. What do we think of that, boys and girls? Not too shabby, eh? All right. So I had a couple more that we're going to skip. We can come back to those maybe another day. And let's look at our lesson objective and our I can statement for today. Okay, so it says for lesson 7, we're going to demonstrate the commutativity, that's a big word, we'll come back to it, of multiplication and practice related facts by skip counting objects in array models. And this says I can use the commutative property. We talked about that. I mentioned it really quickly before, and skip counting to solve multiplication problems. So basically, let me just show you a quick little trick to show you how easy the commutative property is. I'm going to use a little sticky note so we can see how easy it works, okay? So if I have an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say I have 2 rows of 3, okay? And that would be 2 times 3 equals 6. Okay, now I can take that same array and I'm going to turn it. Look at it now. How many rows do I have now? I have 1, 2, 3 rows times how many in the rows? 2, right? So there's 2 in each row, and that equals 6. It's the same thing, it's just turned. So it started out here. Let me just put a little box around it so we can clearly see it. It started out here as 2 times 3, 2 rows of 3, and 2 times 3 equals 6. And then if I just turn that, I've got 3 rows of 2, which equals 6. So it's really the same array, it's just turned on its side. So that's why I talked before that if you had flip-flopped your numbers, you're technically not wrong, but the way that we write it is with a number of groups first, okay? But then using that commutative property, we flip-flop it and we still get the same answer. So that's what we're practicing today. Okay. And I spent a lot of time on review this morning because I thought that was really important for us to make sure that we're good and caught up. So we're going to kind of breeze through our lesson a bit and we'll see if there's chunks maybe we want to take out. Okay. So let's go to that pink problem set. Okay. So if you need to pause it and grab it, you need your pencil. Let me get a different one because that permanent marker will go right through to the other side. Are we ready to roll? Good, and you can always pause it if you need to. Okay, so number 1A says draw an array that shows 6 rows of 2. And I kind of, instead of just putting parentheses around that whole thing, I separated out 6 rows of 2. So we know that there's 6 rows and we're making an array. So I'm going to put the first one in each row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to just do this just to help me remember that I have 6 rows. So here's 1 row, 2 row, 3 rows, 4, 5, and 6 rows. And it's 6 rows of 2, so I need 2 in there. So I'm just going to add 1 more. Easy peasy, right? So that gives me 6 rows. So I'm going to put the 6 right there. And there's 2 in each row, so I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to put my time sign in the corner. And then part B is asking us to write a multiplication sentence where the first factor represents the number of rows, which is exactly what we've been doing. So we have 6 rows times 2, because there's 2 in each row. And let's count by 2s to find that total. Ready? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So my total there is 12. Okay? Look at number 2. Draw an array that shows 2 rows of 6. So this time it's 2 rows of 6. So we have the same numbers, 6 and 2, 2 and 6. They're just mixed up. So I want you to pause your video and make an array that has 2 rows of 6 and then come back to me. And I'm going to do it and then you can check. All right, are you back with me? So as soon as you're done, I hope you unpause the video and check it. So this one had 2 rows of 6. So I just went ahead and I put the first one in each of the rows and I made sure I had a total of 6 in each one. And if I'm going to write my multiple, and I labeled my sides and I put my time sign in the corner to help me remember. So it's so easy to write my multiplication sentence right now because I can just say 2 times 6. It's right there. I don't even need to think about it. And I just copy it down here. So write a multiplication sentence where the first factor represents the number of rows. There's 2 rows, and there's 6 in each row. And 6 plus 6 equals 12. What do you notice about what we just did with these two problems, with 1 and 2? What do you notice about these two arrays? What do you notice about these two number sentences? If someone's right there with you, maybe you could tell them. What do you notice about these two number sentences? Did you notice that they're the same numbers? They're the same numbers, they're just in a different order, right? So we have 6 and 2 and 12, and 2 and 6 and 12. So here we have 6 times 2 is 12, and here we have 2 times 6 is 12. Same numbers, different order. Look at the arrays. Here we have 6 rows of 2, and here we have 2 rows of 6. Did we just use that property that we talked about? We did, didn't we? It's called the commutative property. Commutative property. Can everyone say commutative? Commutative property. So that is just basically saying that when we multiply, we can change the order of the numbers and our answer will still be the same. So we can change the order of the numbers, we can change our array. We just took our array, which was this way, and then we just knocked it over onto its side, right? Because if I look here, right here, and then I am to turn my paper like that, it's the same array, right? It's now 2 rows of 6. So it started out 6 rows of 2, and here I had 2 rows of 6. And if I turn it, I now have 2 rows of 6 there and 6 rows of 2 there. So it's the same thing. Remember that little sticky note that I showed you, how we just took it and turned it, and we had the same array it was just turned, okay? So nice work. Number 3 is telling us to turn our paper in different ways, what's the same and what's different. That's just what we talked about. So we're actually going to cross off 3, A and B. Remember I told you we'd cross them off since we worked a lot at the beginning of our lesson today on review, because I think that was really important for us. Okay, and let's go through these. Let's go to the directions. So 4 says to write a multiplication sentence for each expression. You might skip count to find the totals. So 6 2s, they did 6 times 2 equals 12. So they did 6 2, so 6 times 2. 2 6s would be 2 times 6 equals. And if 6 times 2 equals 12, then 2 times 6 equals 12 also, because that is using, what's that property name, boys and girls? It's the commutative property, right? So we're just taking those same numbers, but we're just flip-flopping them, and our answer is still the same. Okay? The next one, we have 7 2s. So that would be 7 times 2. And let me give you a hint. Whenever you multiply by 2s, you're basically just doubling that number. So we could count by 2 7 times, or we could just say, let's double the 7, and that answer is 14. Okay, so 7 times 2 is 14. And then 2 7s is 2 times 7. Do we know that answer? It's still 14, right? Because if 7 times 2 is 14, then 2 times 7 is 14. What property did we use? It is the commutative property. Good job. If you want to pause the video and then finish these up, you can go ahead and do that and then check it back with me, or you can just stay on with me and work. But I really am trying to push you boys and girls to work to add that little bit of more independent piece in there, and then to check back on your work after, okay? So pause it if you want to work on it, and then come back and check it, okay? So when you are back with me, 9 2s, 9 times 2, and all I'm doing, since I'm multiplying by 2, I double that 9, and I get 18. 2 9s is 2 times 9. It's the same thing, right? 2 2, 9 9. It still equals 18. They're the same numbers, just flip-flopped. It's that commutative property. 11 2s. 11 times 2. So what that means is I'm going to double that 11. If you double that 11, Did you get 22? Nice work. And 2 12s would be 2 times 12, and 12 plus 12 is 24. So if we think of a carton of eggs, it usually has a dozen, right? So if I have 2 cartons of eggs that each have a dozen, that's going to give me 24 eggs. And sometimes if you're a big egg family, you could actually get that many in a carton. Okay, turn it over. All right. Number 5, we have some fishies, and it says to write and solve multiplication sentences where the second factor represents the size of the row. So let's label our fish. So I'm going to put my fish on shelves, so that helps me to remember how many rows I have. So if I look, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of fish. So I'm going to put that 4 right there to remind me that those are my number of rows. And the size of the group means how many are in each one. And I have 1, 2. I have 2 fish in each group. And I can put my times sign right there. And it's going to be, you can pause it and write that number sentence if you know it. Okay. Did you get 4 times 2 equals 8? Good job. Okay. Now I really want you to pause it. I want you to write me a number sentence for this next group of fish there. Okay. So pause it and do that. Okay, so if you're coming back to me, there's 2 rows of fish and they each have 4. So my number sentence, since it's the groups first, it's going to be 2 times 4 equals 8. What do we notice about these 2 number sentences? What property did we use? We use the commutative property of multiplication, right? They're the same numbers. They're just flip-flopped, but our answer is still the same. I have this array of fish that has 4 rows of 2. If I turn it, this array of fish now has 4 rows of 2. So definitely kind of a fun little property. Okay. We're not going to write number 6, but if we just look at it, does 2 times 7 equal 7 times 2? What do you think? Does 2 times 7 equal 7 times 2? 2 times 7 and 7 times 2. Would those be the same? Yes, right? Because they're the same numbers. So just because the numbers are mixed up, our answers are still going to be the same. And the answers are 14. Because remember, we talked about if it's times 2, we just double that other number. So that's how we're going to write for that one. And then we can move on. Number 7 says find the missing factor to make each equation true. 5 times 2 equals 2 times blank. Well, there's that equal sign in the middle. So I know that this side has to be equal to this side. This side has a 2, and this side has a 2. They both are multiplying. This side is 5, so this side needs to be 5. So they need to match up, right? Because it's 2 times 5 and 2 times 5. So now they're equal. That's using that commutative property, okay? If you want to pause it, if you feel good, if you want to pause it and do those last 3 on your own, if you want to do the next one with me and then pause it for the last 2, you can do that, okay? So I'm going to look. So we have that equal sign. This side is 8 times 2. So this side needs to show 8 times 2. There's the 8, so we're missing the 2, okay? This side is 2 times 10 equals blank times 2. Did you put a 10 there? Nice work. All right, and the last cloud. So this side is missing. So there's my equal sign. This side is missing a number, but this side says 9 times 2. So this side should be 9 times 2, and we're missing the 9. So that is a good example of that commutative property. Saying that we can flip-flop those numbers, but our answers will still be the same. Good. And I would love for you boys and girls to pause your video and do number 8 completely on your own. Okay, so read it. We can read it together. Jada gets 2 new packs of erasers. Each pack has 6 erasers in it. You're going to draw an array to show how many erasers Jada has altogether. You're going to write and solve a multiplication sentence to describe the array. And then you're going to use the commutative property to write and solve a different multiplication sentence for the array. So that's basically saying to flip-flop it. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Pause your video and fill that in, and then come back to me and I'm going to go over it. Okay, so pause and get to work. Okay, so if you're coming back to me, Jada has 2 new packs of erasers, and each pack has 6 erasers in it. We want to draw an array to show how many erasers Jada has altogether. So 2 packs of erasers, that means 2 groups. So I'm going to put 2 shelves for my 2 groups, and each pack has 6 erasers in it. So I need 6 in each group. So it already has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 rows of 6. Okay? And then it says to write and solve a multiplication sentence to describe the array. Well, we already have it, right? 2 times 6. Did you get 12 for your answer? Okay. And then C says use the commutative property to write and solve a different multiplication sentence. The commutative property just says I can flip-flop my numbers and my answer will still be the same. So instead of 2 times 6, this time I can say 6 times 2 equals 12. What do we think? So if we look back at our I can statement for today, I can use the commutative property and skip counting to solve multiplication problems. Are we feeling pretty good about that commutative property now? I hope so. So again, we're just taking those 2 numbers and flip-flopping them, knowing that our answer is the same. So super work today, boys and girls. I'm very proud of you, and keep up the great math work.